The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and Game 1 for most of these series are in the books. And despite us having some questions about the top-seeded teams in these matchups, they responded big time in Game 1. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I've been debating with myself how I want to cover the playoffs this year, but I think I finally came up with a system that will work for basically everyone who watches this channel. I think every 2 days I'm going to try to put out a video. That should give me a game per team, even though we didn't get to see LA versus Edmonton play yet. The majority of the teams got to play, so I can give you guys a recap and some coverage on what's going on. So if you guys like this video and the system that I'm going to put out, let me know. I want to hear some feedback. This is going to be for you guys, so if you enjoy the coverage, just let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But we're basically going to go through each series today after Game 1 was played, and I want to start with the first matchup, the St. Louis Blues versus the Winnipeg Jets. Going into the playoffs, there was a lot of discussion around the Jets and whether or not they should be considered legitimate contenders. In fact, I think half the brackets I saw had St. Louis winning this series. But after Game 1, I think a lot of those questions were answered. Despite going down early in this game off a Robert Thomas power play goal, the Jets stayed focused and didn't allow this to rattle them at home. The next two goals belonged to Winnipeg, with the first coming off Scheifele with a power play goal himself, showing off that top unit that Winnipeg has been sporting all season long. Quickly after, the Jets' fourth line would get to work, scoring Winnipeg's second of the night by cycling the puck in the offensive zone, before Luke Schenn's shot was tipped by Jarrett Anderson-Dolan to make the game 2-1. The Jets got the crowd back in it, but St. Louis managed to separate themselves yet again, getting a goal from Sundqvist to tie things up. Neil Pionk was called for a roughing penalty, and the Jets would have another 1:48 to kill on the penalty heading into the second frame. The Jets would get close, but a point shot from Jordan Kyrou would beat Connor Hellebuyck high blocker side and restore the Blues lead 3-2. This is where the overreaction started to flood instantly on Hellebuyck, but he stood strong for the remainder of the game whenever he was tested. His stability allowed the Jets to press offensively and eventually tie things up around the midpoint of the third period. The Jets were consistent with their pressure and seemed to be playing with a step ahead of St. Louis, eventually leading to a Kyle Connor goal off a slick pass from Mark Scheifele to break the game's tie, making it 4-3 the Jets. And eventually, this would lead to another goal by Adam Lowry on the empty net, sealing the deal and giving the Jets their 1-0 series lead. Main takeaways from this game: don't overreact if you're either side. This is just one game in a very long series that St. Louis will play hard in. It's not like they're just going to roll over and allow the Jets to completely sweep them. Remember last year, the Jets won Game 1 and then they sewered their series, losing 4 in a row. So anything can happen. I'm still a believer in the Jets. I really like the way they played. They played with that extra step over St. Louis, but I'm not counting this Blues team out. They are so resilient, and I saw Jordan Binnington step up yet again in a matchup that probably should have been more favorable to the Winnipeg Jets. So we'll see how this series plays out, but Game 1 goes to Winnipeg as they take that 1-0 series lead. As expected, the Dallas Stars vs. Colorado Avalanche is going to be the best series of the first round. This matchup was insane, but it proved one thing for certain. The Stars have no chance of winning this series if Miro Heiskanen is not back in their lineup. No Heiskanen, no Robertson, two of the best players for Dallas down in a series that requires this team to be at their best. The game started with both goalies standing on their heads. Blackwood and Otter both exchanged save after save, keeping this fast-paced matchup pretty tight. Unfortunately for Otter, he had no say in the first goal of the series, with Artturi Lehkonen scoring off a kicking motion after being tied up with the defender. The referees concluded that this was involuntary, and we have a 1-0 Avalanche lead. The game stayed tight for a minute until the second period, when Colorado got a power play after a Roope Hintz high sticking against Nathan MacKinnon, who was the one who fired the puck through traffic and got the second goal of the night for the Colorado Avalanche. The Stars would try to come back with Hintz getting a redemption power play goal, but it just wasn't enough in the end. The Avalanche would tuck 3 more, one for Devon Toews, one for Charlie Coyle, and an empty netter from Nathan MacKinnon, giving the Avalanche a 1-0 series lead. My takeaways for the game: I mentioned it at the top of this recap. The Dallas Stars got to be healthy. I'm not saying they need Jason Robertson. I think that would be nice, but he's more of a luxury given the depth that they have with their forward group. But defensively, they need Miro Heiskanen. The Avalanche are so fast-paced, and their stars are going to show up in this series. And Miro Heiskanen, as your top defender, you're going to need him to slow down those Nathan MacKinnons and Cale Makars. But unfortunately, he's still day-to-day. He's practicing with the team, and who knows if he's going to be back for the series, especially if they go down 2-0. I'm not sure if they're really willing to put him out there and risk his health. As for Colorado, just keep playing your game. I think the biggest surprise for me was how Mackenzie Blackwood performed, given all of the questions surrounding if he was going to be a playoff performer or not. But he showed up and showed out and was arguably the best goalie of the first game within the first round, if that makes sense. So good for Mackenzie Blackwood and the Colorado Avalanche. The reason I chose them is because of Dallas's health, but we'll have to see how that all works as this series continues to go on. Next matchup, this is the first game of Easter Sunday, and honestly, this game went exactly how everyone predicted, with Carolina whooping the New Jersey Devils. The Hurricanes dominated nearly every facet of this game, and at one point there was a post by an account called Slapshot showing the Canes leading in nearly every statistical category. Stankoven immediately had an impact, scoring 2 goals in this game, helping Carolina fans feel a little bit better about that Mikko Rantanen trade. Jalen Chatfield would grab a goal for himself, and Andrei Svechnikov would ice the game with an empty netter. With how one-sided this game was, there is very little to be happy about if you're a New Jersey fan, but the one thing that I took away from this game is that Jacob Markstrom is still an incredible goaltender. He made 41 saves on 44 shots and had a .932 save percentage. So it seems like he's ready to help New Jersey and fix that one area that's been their Achilles heel for so many years. But they need to figure out how they can create offense without their best player. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for New Jersey or Carolina, but I think that this is going to be a series that's decided pretty quickly if New Jersey can't figure out all of their offensive woes. Next series, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Ottawa Senators, the Battle of Ontario, a matchup that a lot of us were really looking forward to. And after game 1, if you're a Senators fan, you're probably feeling a little bit down about your team, but I'm here to tell you not to overreact for this one. Now, Toronto fans, this was the best showing you could ask for. Stolar stood on his head. The core 4 really performed in this one, with each of them having over 2 points on the night. And even guys like Matthew Knies looked incredible. Defensively, there were a few lapses, but overall, you controlled the pace of play, and your back end looked a lot better than it has in previous years. So a good coming for your first game, showing that you're not a team to be messed with, and that this series could be over pretty quickly. Now, on the flip side, this could probably just be attributed to nerves from the Ottawa Senators. We're talking about a young team that's never been in the postseason, Allmark having his troubles in the past, your blue line looking a little bit shaky and irresponsible at times. I think these are things that can be fleshed out as the series goes on. And like I mentioned with the St. Louis Blues, you really only need to get one on the road. So if you can bounce back in game 2 and play a little bit more physical and not adhere to Toronto's game, I think you could make a comeback in this series. But not a great game 1 showing. You're going to need Allmark to be a little bit better, and your blue line and your forwards are going to have to be a lot more responsible and stop taking penalties, because this Toronto power play will expose you. As someone who's rooting for Toronto in this series, I'm pretty happy with how this game 1 went for the team. I love the way the core 4 performed. But for the Ottawa Senators, on the flip side, it's just all about being responsible and being prepared for the next game. You took way too many penalties in this one, you weren't ready for the game, and there was clearly a lot of nerves. So regroup, bounce back, and hopefully the coaching staff can get them together a bit more so that this series can be a bit more competitive. But for the Maple Leafs, this was an excellent game for them at home. In our last game of the weekend, we have the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Minnesota Wild, and this matchup, it was actually a lot closer than I was anticipating. Tomas Hertl would open up the scoring for this series and also have an assist later on, but the first goal would be an amazing snipe that went right over the shoulder of Philip Gustafsson. The Knights would also get contributions from Brett Howden, who scored twice in the third period, and Pavel Dorofeev, who would grab one of his own. Adin Hill made 18 saves and was pretty solid for the Knights as they took one at home. For the Minnesota Wild, they had 2 goals from Matt Boldy, 2 assists from Kirill Kaprizov, and 23 saves from Philip Gustafsson, but just didn't have enough offense to compete with the high-flying team that is the Vegas Golden Knights. I have Vegas being heavy favorites in this matchup. I think I even have them sweeping in this series, but After game 1, I could see the Wild grabbing a game or two, but this next game is going to set the tone for this series, sort of like every other one we've talked about in this video, but this one more specifically, because if Vegas grabs 2 at home and then they steal game 3 or 4, this series is basically over, especially with how dominant they can be defensively. Hopefully the Wild can get more contributions from some of their other players outside of their top line, but big win for the Vegas Golden Knights as they take the 1-0 series lead. But this is my first recap of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Again, I want to hear what you guys think about this format. Do you like this coverage every 2 to 3 days? Or would you rather me bring on some other creators and analysts and do maybe a weekly recap at the end of each week? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this one, make sure you give this a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next episode.